quality health care, or broad economic opportunity. Reducing inequity is the highest human achievement. I left campus knowing little about the millions of young people cheated out of educational opportunities here in this country. And I knew nothing about the millions of people living in unspeakable poverty and disease in developing countries. It took me decades to find out. You graduates came to Harvard at a different time. You know more about the world's inequities than the classes that came before. In your years here, I hope you've had a chance to think about how, in this age of accelerating technology, we can finally take on these inequities and we can solve them. Imagine, just for the sake of discussion, that you had a few hours a week and a few dollars a month to donate to a cause. And you wanted to spend that time and money where it would have the greatest impact in saving and improving lives. Where would you spend it? For Melinda and I, the challenge is the same. How can we do the most good for the greatest number with the resources we have? During our discussions on this question, Melinda and I read an article about the
firm, including stacking shelves when she was younger. Ortega, whose firm Inditex is the parent company to Zara, Massimo Dutti and Pull & Bear, is seen relaxing on his yacht. Ortega, pictured at a horse riding competition in Casas Novas, now has a larger net worth than U.S. investor Warren Buffett. Marta Ortega, a keen horse rider, is pictured with her father at an equestrian festival in Spain. Marta rides her horse Zigali at the 30th edition of the CSI Casas Novas horse jumping contest in La Coruna, Galicia. Ortega became the world's richest man on Wednesday when shares of Inditex went up 2.5%. The Ortega's pictured at a horse riding event in Monte Carlo, Monaco, as part of the Global Champion Tour 2012. Ortega never gives interviews and is rarely photographed. He did not even attend the inaugural ringing of the stock market bell at the Madrid exchange when Inditex floated in 2001. Ortega holds a 59.3% stake in what is now the world's biggest fashion retailer, ahead of Gap and Hens and Maurits. The Spanish company owned by Ortega, which alongside Zara also owns the brands Bershka, Pull & Bear, and Massimo Dutti, has quietly become the world's largest fashion retailer. It is not the first time Ortega has topped the list. He was briefly ahead of Bill Gates in October before surge in Microsoft shares put him back in second place.
We have a country with $54,000 of GDP per capita, which is, beyond what my parents or grandparents would have dreamed could ever have been possible. And yet, we have 24 million households, the bottom quintile in the country, with income where at the very top of that quintile is $21,000 annually. And we've always talked about the American dream. The American dream, of course, was that anyone with education and good habits and hardworking could move themselves from really the bottom up to at least a decent life. And there's been a lot of that. I mean, the American dream has been very real for millions and millions of people over the years. But there's been an American nightmare that has accompanied that, and that's where people that equally have tried to get educated and worked hard and had good habits have found themselves living a life that's been on the edge throughout their entire lives, and the same for their children. And America can do better than that. You want a market-driven society, and the market is not going to pay a great many people something much above a bare subsistence wage, and that's not good enough in this country. And you've got two alternatives. One is to raise the minimum wage, and the second one is the Earned Income Tax Credit. And of course you can use both, but I think the Earned Income Tax Credit is by far the most useful tool to really minimize poverty in this country.
I that I would always regret that. I would always wonder, and it would haunt me until that mythical day, which I actually hope will come.
Many kids and many grown-ups do figure out over time what their passions are. And sometimes we let I don't think it's that hard. I think what happens though sometimes is that we let our intellectual selves overrule those passions. And so that's what needs to be guarded against.
I'm going to put the vast majority of my energy, attention, and dollars into building a great product or service, and put a smaller amount into shouting about it, marketing it. Because I know if I build a great product or service, my customers will tell each other. You have to mix in some patience with that. Almost 7 years ago now, I started this most incredible journey called Amazon.com. Actually, at that time, it wasn't even called Amazon.com. It was called Cadabra Inc., as in abracadabra. That was the original name of the company. And I had phoned a lawyer on the way to Seattle from a cell phone. And he said, well, what do you, to incorporate the company? He said, what do you want the company to be called? And I said, Cadabra. And he said, Cadaver? And I knew that was a bad name. We changed it a few months later.
What we have always wanted to do is raise the standard for what it means to be customer-centric.
When Charles Koch took over the family business nearly half a century ago, he had a vision for the oil company that his father founded.
I worked out, okay, how much can we grow over a period of time, and projected that out through my life. And 2 years ago, we were 70 times that amount.
Koch Industries, headquartered in a sprawling glass and granite campus in Wichita, is now the second largest private company in the country. With more than 100,000 employees worldwide, the conglomerate refines up to 600,000 barrels of oil a day and produces everything from Stainmaster carpets to electronic components for smartphones. Charles and his brother David own 84% of Koch Industries. Forbes estimates their net worth at nearly $43 billion each. But the sixth wealthiest man in the world still gets his lunch every day at the company cafeteria, although it's a bit more challenging after recent foot surgery. The 79-year-old CEO is at his desk each morning at 7:15 a.m., under the watchful eye of the family patriarch.
So this is your dad here,
That's my dad, yeah.
Fred Koch made his first